Coming up on the Inside Indiana Business Television podcast, the 2017 Holiday Shopping Outlook. A fast-growing tech company thinks more venture capital is coming to Indiana. A Terre Haute company banks on the e-commerce boom. A preview of the Agbiosciences Innovation Summit. Indiana's new health commissioner talks about her goals. Details on a new state graduation report. And a look at Indy attracting more big-time sporting events. Welcome to the Inside Indiana Business Television podcast. I'm Andy Ober. The holiday shopping season is underway and consumer confidence is up in Indiana. Purdue University retail management professor Richard Feinberg expects retail sales to be 4 to 6% higher this holiday season. The increase is even larger online, with sales expected to jump 15 to 17%. Feinberg joined Inside Indiana Business Television host Gary Dick to break down the numbers.
You come bearing some good news this year, right? You're talking about potentially an excellent holiday shopping season.
I'm scared. I'm scared to say it.
Yeah.
But yes, all the signs, all the forces of the universe are pointing in that direction. Consumer confidence is up. The economic conditions are up. Jobs. Although we had a slight downtick, it's still lower than normal. People want to shop, and they're going to.
I want to touch on consumer confidence because it's up more than it's been in quite a while here in Indiana, right?
Yes, and consumer confidence is a good predictor of what's going to happen. And so was the shopping season in September, and August, September, October, and that was up also. So all signs are the forces of the universe are on retailer side.
All right, let's talk about some specifics because you're looking at holiday retail sales, maybe a 4 to 6% revenue increase this year. How do you see that playing out?
Well, I think 6% is going to be the mid-range now at this point, but I don't want to say that out loud. But online is even growing faster than store-based retailing. But it's all about store-based retailing. When retailers get consumers in the store, they spend money. If they can't get them in the store, they have to worry unless they have a very solid internet presence. And
you say one of the big stories that you're seeing this year is this so-called retail apocalypse is highly overrated, really is not happening.
I hear it all the time. I get calls all the time. Why is retail dying? Why are malls dying? Yes, there are some malls that are not doing well. Yes, there are some retailers that are going out of business, have gone out of business, will go out of business. It's the cycle of life. And in the meantime, the stronger retailers are doing exceptionally well.
Yeah, you talked about online sales. Let's talk about some of the real drivers, the dynamics in the holiday shopping season. Big companies like Amazon and Apple, they continue to be big stories.
Giant stories. 90% of consumers go online to research stuff, even if they're not going to buy it online. And that's why it's so important to have an online presence if you're a small Indiana retailer, because consumers are going to look for you. And Google gives you so much help to get online and to get known that I'm so sad that most small business retailers don't have the time or the inclination or the understanding of what that can do for them.
What about that gulf, that gap between the big box stores and those smaller mom and pop stores, especially in rural Indiana? Is that gap widening? How do you see that playing?
I see it widening. I'm just, they're hanging on the edge. But there are some that are doing very well, and I think we will see a resurgence of retailing in the downtown areas. Because we have a younger generation of entrepreneur who is going to fill that gap, and they understand social media, they understand how to sell on Amazon, and they understand all the things that the millennial consumer is looking for.
Yeah. How about the impact closer to home here in central Indiana? A lot of news in Fishers with the arrival of IKEA and Topgolf and a lot of retail. How is IKEA's arrival, in your view, going to affect the retail market here in central Indiana?
Meatballs.
Meatballs.
Meatballs. Right. They have unbelievable meatballs in the vegetarian version and in the non-vegetarian version. It's just something new. It's something brand new. 5 years from now, it's just going to be okay. Right now, it is a wow.
Yeah.
You stand there and you see just how exciting people are and the kids are, and you go in and you don't want anything. And Fran and I spent $100 on spatulas. We didn't know we wanted. We didn't know we needed. But it was a wonderful time.
You got him. Very good. Richard Feinberg, Purdue University, as always. Great perspective. Gift cards, the number one seller this year, right?
It's the number one item that people buy, gift cards.
All right.
Unbelievable.
Good. Thanks as always. We'll talk to you soon.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Still to come, the e-commerce boom fuels a Terre Haute company, and Agrinovis lands major funding ahead of a big event. But first, a fast-growing Indianapolis technology company has scored another $8 million in funding. Lessonly, a training software platform, says the investment could help it potentially double its current 80-person team over the next 2 years. CEO Max Yoder joined IIB to talk about the company's plans with the funding and said he believes more venture capital is on its way to Indiana.
Welcome and congratulations on the raise.
Thank you.
Million.
Big team effort. Great to be here.
Well, and that goes back to 2016. You had a $5 million Series A round there, so you raised almost $14 million.
That's right.
It goes along with growth of the company. Your software that you thought maybe you'd get a few thousand, maybe initially.
Yeah, we had pretty modest goals at the beginning.
You've reached 1 million users.
We have, yeah. It was a mark that, it's a nice round number, and my hometown is 30,000 people in Goshen, Indiana. So when I think about reaching 30 times that amount, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, give us for those who don't know, the business model, because it is really attractive. A lot of people are talking about it, but talk about this learning software.
Sure, we sell the sales teams and customer service teams largely, because these are teams who have to maintain this really high bar of excellence while things around them are evolving, products, promotions, processes. We're continuously retraining these teams through Lessonly so they can stay on top of the latest and greatest playbook. Okay,
the success story, you look at the numbers, you launched the company in 2012, but really began to scale in 2014.
Right.
And the number that gets me, the beginning of 2016, I think you had 17 employees.
That's
You're
correct.
now over 80.
Right, 17 to 80 in under 24 months. That's correct.
Talk about the growth and really in your view, what's driving it?
I think that people are attracted to the business model that we have and just basically the way that we can impact people on the personal scale. We're not about disintermediating individuals and companies. We're about empowering individuals and companies. And when we do that, they get bigger paychecks, they get faster promotions, and we get to hear the stories, and it just continues to reinforce our excitement. I think people have been attracted to that. They've come into the business, and we've been thrilled to have them.
Yeah, you talked about this Series B round of $8 million, Boston-based OpenView Venture Partners, Rethink Education, Management in New York, some Central Indiana firms, High Alpha, Alos Ventures. You're very outspoken. You think that Indiana as a state, obviously Lessonly is attractive to VC, but you think the state can really, is beginning to attract more venture capital.
No doubt, no doubt. We're getting high growth businesses with really strong fundamentals, and that's what it takes.
Yeah, and that's people talk about the need for more VC in Indiana, and you're of the opinion you got to have the ideas, you got to have the companies, the scalable companies.
Yes, and I think we have them. I think the argument of do we need more actual venture capital coming from this state? I don't think we do. I think there's so much venture capital out there, and it's hungry to be in Indiana. What it's looking for are fundamentally strong businesses with high growth business models with big wide open markets. And there's plenty of those, and we have them here. So a lot more capital over the next 6 months, 12 months, 18 months is going to be in this state.
All right, let's look forward at Lessonly.
Sure.
You got this latest round of $8 million. What do you hope to do with it? I know you have growth plans.
Sure, we're going to invest in the people who are already here. So, growing from 17 to 80, we've got a lot of people who are reaching this productivity and really driving the business forward. We want to continue investing in them through, training and just making sure their experiences are excellent. And then we're bringing in more product people, more sales people, more marketing people. When the sales team grows, everything has to grow around it because we have to support more clients with product and client experience, and then those kind of general and administrative roles as well. We really built out the executive team in 2016. We'll continue to scale in a aggressive, but I think measured way.
Yeah, but you think you can double that 80-person staff in the next couple of years?
I'd say a couple years, yeah. We're definitely not going to look to do that next year. Yeah. But we have there's no ceiling on this business. We're selling to people who have never invested in what we sell ever. And 90% of them are in that category of new buyers to this piece of software. Yeah. So there's a wide open market out there.
All right, Max Yoder, the CEO of Lessonly, one of Indiana's true success stories. Max, thanks for joining us. Congratulations, and we look forward to having you on again.
Yeah, I look forward to it too. Thank you.
Later in the podcast, agriculture and innovation will take the statewide spotlight, and Indiana's new health commissioner joins us. But first, the CEO of a Terre Haute company says the stay-at-home economy offers unlimited potential for the 3-year-old business. Box Up makes packaging for subscription box providers, including Indiana-based Dapper Club, Shredbox Monthly, and Everyday Sanctuary. Kurt Stevens came in studio to talk about Box Up carving out a piece of the multi-billion-dollar industry.
I love this. It is a great success story in just a year, but I want to back up for just a moment in terms of your background. You're in the box industry, if you will, really entering into this subscription box industry. You and your partner, Ward Hubbard, have a history, or had a history in Terre Haute, right?
Absolutely, yeah. We both spent all of our early days of our careers with Wabash Fiber Box Company, which has been in Terre Haute for many, many years. They're on the north side of town and operated a paper mill there in Terre Haute. We were purchased by International Paper back in '98, and then International Paper made a decision to close that box plant in 2000, and that's when Ward and I started over again with a new iteration, again in the traditional box business. But we started Wabash Valley Packaging at that time in 2000 and operated it up until this new startup of BoxUp.com.
Okay, BoxUp.com. You're in the subscription box sector, if you will, right? That's a big market.
It's a great user group for us, Gary. As you probably know, around your house, purchasing subscription club merchandise has become a very popular thing in the U.S. It's a $5 billion a year industry and grows double-digit every year. Birchbox, Dollar Shave Club are some real familiar names in that category, but they've been a great user group for us.
All right, let's talk about your growth. You've only been up and running now for a year, already have 1,000 customers. Part of the attraction is you've got a niche here where you can do smaller runs, right, using technology.
Sure, yeah. For the first 30 years of my career, in the traditional box model, to be honest with you, it wasn't easy. We didn't make it easy in our industry for small to medium-sized companies to buy printed boxes like the ones you see here. They just didn't have enough volume, enough scale. And what we've done is we've made the purchasing process very, very simple, and we've made buying the boxes very affordable for customers of that type.
Yeah. Talk about being in Terre Haute and why Terre Haute is a great location for a company like this.
Well, we're in the middle of the country. We deliver to our customers using the major postal parcel carriers, UPS, FedEx, USPS. Being in the middle of the country means we can reach the LA Basin and New York City cost effectively, and our customers are dispersed across the whole United States.
Yeah, and Terre Haute's got a history in this business.
Absolutely.
Talk about growth, because you're looking at some pretty exciting growth plans. You've got a dozen or so employees now, but you're looking to ramp up over the next couple of years.
Gary, one of the things that we look at is just in the Black Friday to New Year's Day time frame of the year. Last year in this country, 1 billion parcels were delivered during that time frame. This year, that number will grow 15-16%. That's the growth area of the economy in our country, and that's the economy that we're participating in at BoxUp. Our customers reach their customers through that kind of delivery methodology, and that's why a printed box like this is so important for them. It establishes relationship. It makes the delivery of that product exciting. Makes every time you receive that box, it's a little bit like Christmas morning, and that's what our customers like.
Well, another example of the Internet of Things in Indiana, another company, the CEO of the company is Kurt Stevens. BoxUp is the company in Terre Haute to enjoy some explosive growth. Kurt, welcome. Thank you for being here. Good luck going forward.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Don't forget to catch Inside Indiana Business Television on stations throughout the state every weekend. Head to InsideIndianaBusiness.com to check listings. Coming up, Indiana's new health commissioner talks about the state's biggest challenges and ideas on how Indiana can boost its graduation rate. But now, AgriNovus, the state's food and agriculture innovation initiative, has landed a more than $4 million grant from the Indy-based Lilly Endowment. It comes ahead of the 2017 Indiana Agbiosciences Summit, which will feature names including Governor Eric Holcomb and former Eli Lilly CEO John Lechleiter. AgriNovus CEO Beth Beckdahl and Elanco Animal Health Vice President Aaron Scott joined IIB to talk about plans for the funding and the summit.
Beth, I'm going to start with you. Big news in this Lilly endowment grant, $4.2 million. I know you've got a real specific focus on where you want to put those dollars to work.
We absolutely do. And first I would say, thank you for so many people who have been able to benefit from the Lilly Endowment's philanthropy. And for us, it's really a game-changing opportunity to focus on public education and outreach, really making sure that Hoosiers understand what the ag biosciences sector really is and what it means for the state of Indiana, and also to really enhance and step up our talent and workforce development programs.
And obviously that's a very important piece, that talent and workforce pipeline. Talk about quickly, if you could, Beth, the potential impact, the value of the ag biosciences sector in Indiana. It's huge.
Well, it absolutely is. Already we have 75,000 jobs in this space, $16 billion contribution to the state's economy, but it's the potential, as you say, Gary, and really for us in the talent area, beginning to open up, I think, the eyes and the minds of a lot of young people in our state's colleges and universities who don't feel like they know much about what a career in agriculture would be like, or that they're actually studying something like biology or data science or computer engineering that has a direct role in the ag biosciences businesses.
Aaron, Elanco is a great example of the assets that Indiana has here, a huge global company based here in central Indiana. Talk about your view of the talent pipeline. Most sectors of the economy in Indiana, it's a pretty tight workforce. What's the view?
Yeah, we have the benefit of major organizations here in the state that draw this kind of talent, like ours, like Eli Lilly and Company, but also major universities as well. Purdue is a great example. And I think what we've been is probably a net exporter of talent in the state, and we need to become a net importer of talent. And I think the ag sector, the ag bioscience sector, is a great opportunity for us to sort of Elanco to further its business by attracting talent here, but retaining it because we create a great environment for doing so.
Yeah, it seems to be momentum around this sector in Indiana. You just got back, both of you, from New York. Forbes Ag Tech Summit will be coming to Indiana.
Next September, mark your calendars, the 26th and 27th. Forbes has long held an Ag Tech Summit in Salinas, California, and realized that even as they're moving more to doing some events in New York, they were kind of missing the heartland where real Midwestern agriculture, both crop and livestock and tech, takes place. And so we've worked with the Indiana Economic Development Corporation and will be the host in Indianapolis next year of their first Midwestern Summit.
And closer to home here in another few days, you've got the Ag Biosciences Innovation Summit. Quickly give us the thumbnail. This is a big event.
It is a big event, and we're going to cover a lot of really exciting topics, both cutting edge science and research, obviously the way businesses interact with one another in the ag biosciences area, and also entrepreneurship and investment.
All right, and I'm proud to be a part of that. I'm looking forward to that. Elanco is a big supporter of that event, and Agrinovus as well. Beth Bechtel, also Aaron Schott, thank you both very much. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Still to come, how can Indiana grow its graduation rate? And Indy continues to attract big-time sporting events. But first, new Indiana State Health Commissioner Christina Box has been on the job just a little over a month. Box spent more than 30 years as an OB/GYN with Community Health Network and succeeds Jerome Adams, who is now U.S. Surgeon General. She came in studio to talk about the biggest health challenges Indiana faces and how to address them.
You have a very lengthy career as an OB/GYN, all those years at Community Health Network, 30 plus years. Why, when you got the call to be the state's new health commissioner, why take the position?
Well, I have over the years always done missions trips abroad to Bolivia or Haiti, and decided a couple of years ago that my mission field was going to be here at home, because after 30 years of obstetrics and gynecology, I really hadn't seen a decrease in the infant mortality across our state. So my desire was to just try to help with that.
Well, let's talk about some of your real focus areas and priorities. One is infant mortality, as you mentioned. Talk about the challenge. It's been a challenge in Indiana for a number of years. Talk about that challenge and how you'd like to see the state really attack it.
So we run probably 613 babies in the year of 2015, didn't make it to their first birthday. Our rate is always one of the higher ones in the nation for infant mortality. And despite some really great efforts that have been made, we just have not really been able to impact that. We've brought the infant mortality rate for the black population down, but it's still two times higher than our white population. So we have a lot of areas that we can attack. In general, if we attack the health of the people of Indiana, will improve our infant mortality also.
Yeah. Opioid abuse, addiction is a huge issue in Indiana, obviously. There's a human toll, there's a business toll in the state. It's that way in many states across the country. Obviously, that's a priority. How are you looking at that addiction issue and really attacking that?
Well, as you know, the number of overdose deaths in Indiana has gone up significantly, probably about 60% from 2011 to 2016. So one thing to try to help with that is to get the naloxone out there, and I've got a standing order across the state so that people can get naloxone. We obviously have it in the hands of our first responders, but more importantly also making sure that if you have a family member that you feel is at risk, or a neighbor or someone close to you, you can go to a pharmacy nearby and get the naloxone yourself and have it to administer. We're also working very hard to make sure that people who inject drugs with needles do not spread HIV and hepatitis C across our state. We're working to try to get more treatment programs open and to try to make sure that the beds that are open are available to patients. So Dr. Walthall with FSSA has worked very hard to get kind of an open bed policy set up where you can actually, whenever that patient is ready for treatment, whenever the patient hits the emergency room with a drug overdose, if they say they're ready, we can get on 211 and determine where the nearest bed for them to obtain treatment is.
Such a daunting challenge, so many aspects to it. How important in your view is that early education, getting to young people, again, as they are young people?
So substance use disorder is a chronic disease, and we know that once you get addicted, that is going to be times of relapse and times where you're sober or not addicted at that moment. So the reality is that what we need to do is make sure we're training our younger people, just like with not smoking, that they never try the drugs. Especially younger people are at risk for becoming addicted because their brains are just more susceptible to that. So starting at a very young age, in elementary school actually, to talk about not using drugs and the negative effects of using drugs.
Indiana, speaking of smoking, the Indiana Chamber of Commerce is out supporting an increase in the minimum age to 21. I assume you support that, but your thoughts on that move?
Most definitely. Since most smokers start, about 90% of them start before the age of 18, I think it's really important to try to keep cigarettes out of the hands of our young adults. Mm-hmm. And most smokers, probably 99% of them by the age of 26. Mm-hmm.
Final question as we wrap up, but just the overall health of the state of Indiana, the general health, it's not been good. The state hasn't ranked very well in recent years. How do you look to kind of get to that overall health? Is it a gradual, over time kind of thing?
Right. At the health department, we would really like to start focusing on the healthy aspects of life, exercising regularly, at least 30 minutes a day, watching your weight, because we do have such a significant percentage of Hoosiers that are overweight. And unfortunately, 1/3 of our children have obesity, and that tends to go into adult life also. So that increases the risk for diabetes, high blood pressure, heart attacks, strokes.
Yep. All right, Dr. Chris Box is the state's new health commissioner. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks.
You got a lot on your plate. I know we look forward to having you on the show in the future.
Anytime. Thanks again.
Later in the podcast, more big-time sporting events are coming to Indy. What does it mean for the city beyond the final whistles? But first, a new report is highlighting how the state can improve its graduation rate by addressing challenges in areas like racial equity, urban education, and oversight of homeschooled students. The study was commissioned by the Richard M. Fairbanks Foundation. CEO Claire Fidian Green came in studio to talk about the progress Indiana has made and the challenges that remain.
The good news certainly is graduation rates in the state continue to go in the right direction. They're improving, right?
That's right. In 2015, Indiana actually led the country with the highest graduation rate according to federal data, and we had the smallest gap between low-income and non-low-income students. So that's great news, and it's really the credit of students, teachers, and principals everywhere.
As you look at the numbers, the graduation numbers, could they be skewed a little bit when you look at waivers and homeschool numbers here in Indiana?
Yeah, those were some of the findings in the report. In fact, the state reported graduation rate differentiates between the waiver and non-waiver graduation rate, and that's actually a 6% difference. That's pretty significant, and that matters when at the federal level they're not looking at the waiver diploma rate and say that that's going to be acceptable under the new federal requirements.
Right. Well, this report, Closing the Graduation Gap, again, just released. Talk about some of the really, in your view, the important takeaways, because I think one of the things was looking at improving, continuing to improve these graduation rates, so focusing on the student in high school, but also with an eye beyond high school as well, right?
That's right. So the good news is we've made great strides over the past 15 years, but there's more work to do. And so we have some of these gaps to close and heightened expectations at the federal and state level about what students need to demonstrate in order to graduate. And we've been hearing a lot about connecting what's happening in the classroom with what's happening with the demands of companies and industries here in Indiana. So that means making it relevant, the coursework in high school, to what is going to actually be like when you're in the workplace. So that could be through apprenticeships, through more rigorous career and technical education programs offered in the high school setting.
Yeah, how will this push for more rigor in the classroom throughout the state? How will that affect this whole scenario?
Yeah, if we all focus more on rigor, then I think you're going to see good results for all students, regardless of their background and their circumstances. And in fact, this report highlights some great things that are happening around the state. For example, at the Fort Wayne Community Schools in Allen County, you see a heavy focus on early warning indicators like high rates of absenteeism, making sure that you identify those students who are at risk, not showing up in school, get them back in school, get them back on track.
So really looking at data, analytics to maybe set off some warning bells.
That's right, looking at data. And then if you look at Warren Township here closer to home, they're doing some wonderful things with career and technical education program and connecting what's happening for students in the high school classroom with what it's going to be like when they actually have a career. So making the education more relevant, making it more rigorous, making it meet the requirements of employers today.
How do you sense, there's not one size fits all, I guess, but as you look at school districts and systems around the state, their acceptance of these recommendations and suggestions, kind of this new way of looking at things?
I think that schools and principals and teachers recognize that we need to continue to raise expectations because we live in a global economy, and that's just the reality. We have states competing for multinational companies, those companies competing for global talent. So it's up to us to prepare our students to be successful in the 21st century. So I think that you've seen schools step up, and I think they're going to continue to step up and meet these higher expectations.
As we wrap up here, what in your view is the risk of not doing these things, of not really embracing some of these changes? We talk about a lot about the talent pipeline and the need for education beyond high school. What's the risk at not really focusing on these things?
Yeah, the number one issue you hear companies talking about is an inability to find sufficient talent. You hear that in the STEM fields in particular. So we really have to do everything we can to make sure we're preparing kids in our K-12 system so that all Hoosiers are successful in 21st century jobs and they can earn high-wage, high-demand jobs.
All right, lots of great information. Closing the Graduation Gap is the report just released from the Richard M. Fairbanks Foundation. Claire Fittian-Green, as always, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Gary.
All right.
Indianapolis recently celebrated the 25th anniversary of hosting the Pan American Games. Since then, the city has attracted several championship events, including multiple Final Fours and Super Bowl 47. Most recently, Indy landed the 2022 College Football Playoff National Championship game. In our Eye on Economic Development segment, KSM Location Advisor CEO Tim Cook and President Katie Culp talk about the economic impact beyond the games.
Indy, great reputation for hosting sporting events, really a global reputation. As you look at it, what makes, first of all, these events worthwhile from an economic development standpoint? We just saw recently one of the best examples, College Football Playoff Championship, National Championship game. Indy gets it in 2022.
Yeah, Gary, I think that event in particular, the fact that we got it, it wasn't even competitively bid. We were invited to host it. I think it validates the sports strategy that Indy's had for about 40 years now, which is let's use sports as an economic development tool and to drive behavior based on that. So I think it's something that the city and really the whole community should be really proud of.
Which, if you go back 40 years, pretty novel idea to come up with that. I don't think everybody was necessarily on board with that idea, but boy, as you say, it's played out.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the history, it goes back to like the late 70s when Mayor Hudnut said, let's build a dome before we have a team, and then you go to the Simons saving the Pacers, the Pan Am game. There's been a whole strategy that Indianapolis has really put into place, and I think getting this event is the culmination of that.
Katie, in your view, as you look at what makes Indianapolis successful, as Tim mentioned, the Indiana Sports Corporation is the first organization of its kind in the country. Now there are hundreds. So the competition for these events are very intense. How does Indianapolis, as a track record, how do they continue to do very well in not only getting the big events, but doing a great job hosting them?
Well, I think the track record's a really important component of it. When people are making decisions about where to place these events, they want to eliminate risk or at least minimize it. And we've proven that we can do this and we can do it without screwing up. And so I think that speaks volumes. But we've got the assets here that make it attractive. You know, we have the hotel rooms, we have amazing volunteer community who come out of the woodwork to work at these things, and we've got corporate support. I mean, they came together to pull in the Super Bowl, and it seems like that's going to happen again with this event.
And you look at bipartisan support, be it at state government, local government, and we're beginning to see communities. We just did the story on the Little League Central region coming to Zionsville. We're seeing what's happening in Westfield. So this whole sports strategy is kind of going around the state in smaller communities as well.
Yeah, it can, maybe that'll be what brings us all together. But even for people like me who maybe aren't sports aficionados, I think it's something we can all rally around and be proud that our community is home to some of these amazing events.
Yeah, a lot is always made about the economic impact of these events. Impact studies are done and the like. But let's talk about the college football playoff, the national championship game. Tim, as you look at that, beyond the field, what's the impact in your view?
Well, you're going to have a lot of people spending money downtown, and so that's huge. We're going to have a ton of visitors here. You're going to have a lot of exposure nationally and internationally as far as people being aware of the event and being aware of Indianapolis. But the other part is it really gives us an opportunity to showcase Indianapolis to businesses that we're trying to attract here. It gives us almost an opportunity to talk to these people that have come to visit. What do you think about Indianapolis? It gives us that chance to assess why we're strong and to make the city even more competitive.
And that's the piece, national and international television exposure, media exposure in all forms, across all platforms. Hard to put a dollar amount on that, but yet there has to be some impact there.
Absolutely. It has people talking about Indianapolis in some parts of the country or even parts of the world that aren't even familiar with us. So I think that part is very valuable.
Yeah, but go ahead, Katie.
Yeah, and Tim, I mean, don't you think even a lot of, something's been said a lot about how many corporate headquarters do we have here in the region and maybe how it compares to other communities. But even those companies that we have that have large presence here but maybe aren't headquartered, their headquarter leadership are coming in. They're going to these games. They're meeting the leadership here in the community. They're seeing what an amazing place we call home. Yeah. And I think that's the type of advertising and PR that you can't even purchase, and it has a lasting impact when they're thinking about where to place an expansion down the line or something like that.
Yeah, as you look at these big events, whether it's the national championship game for football, the Big Ten championship that's coming up next weekend, are these just one-time shots in the arm, or do they have impact that can go further than that, Katie?
Well, we don't totally agree on a lot of things, but this too. I think the risk is that it is just a one-hit wonder. I think it doesn't have to be. I think when we get all of our many great organizations working together and crossing barriers to try and leverage every ounce of these events, it can be more meaningful. But I think, worst case scenario, it's still a huge shot in the arm to our economy.
Yeah, I think the sports strategy has worked, and we need to continue to invest in downtown. And I think if we're going to continue to double down on the strategy, which I think is the right way to go, it's not just about hosting more conventions, hosting more sporting events, but trying to parlay this into having actual corporate attraction success as well.
And you both weigh in on this, but does this play into the whole live, work, play model that economic development, so much of economic development seems to be about that?
Absolutely. I think this is part of what attracts people to downtown, part of what attracts them to Indianapolis. And sports isn't the only thing. It can be part of how do we develop the arts and the cultural aesthetics that we have, but I think it's a big part of what we do.
We can't import mountains or oceans to Indiana, but we can continue to attract really, high-performing events like this and that gain attraction. So that's what we can do, and we should keep doing it.
All right, some great perspective on high-profile sporting events in Indianapolis. It's become the city's calling card, or certainly one of them. Tim Cook, Katie Culp, KSM Location Advisors, thanks very much.
Thanks, Gary.
Talk to you soon.
That wraps up this week's Inside Indiana Business Television podcast. Remember, you can find all of this week's TV segments, as well as the top business news from throughout the state at InsideIndianaBusiness.com. And while you're there, you can also subscribe to our platform of free e-newsletters. This is Andy Ober for Inside Indiana Business.